So I think a great place to start or restart in some ways is your beginning of your teaching journey. And what maybe another way to approach this is what were your hopes back then? Like, did you have dreams of some sort of like future where you're like, okay, this, if I have this career, or if I, and I know you don't share this, I mentioned this in the conversation with Charles recently, like you don't share the Oprah's couch dream. Um, was there like a vision when you started, you know, teaching and making things like, whether it was for Insight Timer or creating stuff online, like did you have a dream, or has it just been kind of, oh, this feels good in this moment?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question and great point of discussion to start with. I would say both, like in the sense that yes and no, and it has been in like different phases. So just to kind of also talk about what you said about like we don't share the dream of the being on Oprah's couch. Actually, that was a dream at some point of time, but it actually came. So let me mention like what those cycles and waves have been for me, those different phases. So initially, when I started out, I had no idea or even no intention that I would become a teacher when I started meditating. And that was more from my own personal, personal own transformation and the problems that I was going through, the stress, the anxiety, also like kind of a spiritual transformation that I was going through because my religion, I was a practicing Muslim. My religion was more about like the that connection to God is through like a certain priest. In excuse me, in Islamic tradition, we say, these priests are known as Maulanas or Maulvis, and only a Maulvi can actually make you connect with God, or only these verses of the Quran can make you connect with God. And with due respect to whoever practices religion and believes in that, but what I came to realize that this does not resonate with me, and it's my own personal experience that actually makes me connect with God versus like reading the Quran or versus like a priest. And so that was another point of getting into meditation. So health benefits, easing my stress, anxiety, but also like a spiritual experience. And initially, I had no idea that I would, become a meditation teacher. Until what happened was that I, at some point of time, someone told me that start expressing yourself. And I was at a particular retreat in Dharamshala in India, and that's also where I got trained into informally trained into meditation. And one of my mentors said that you have a beautiful voice, and you have you are also like your demeanor is towards being more calm, and so I feel that you can be a good guide, and I feel that you're ready to be a good guide. And although it had been only few years since I was practicing meditation, and I said that it has only been a few years and I'm not, I don't know if I'm ready to do that. But he said that it's absolutely okay to, because I was feeling this, dilemma, which I'm sure you might have also experienced, that is it really this time to start teaching now, or should I like be a, student for many more years and then go into this? But he said, this mentor of mine, he said that it's absolutely okay to express, like, and you don't really have to label yourself as a teacher, but you can start expressing yourself. So that's the point, Lou, when actually and I think it was 2018, and I had been also meditating on Insight Timer through Insight Timer for since 2016, and I had been noticing that you were already a teacher there at that time. I believe you joined before me, right?
A first meditation I published was 2016. To consider myself a
2016.
teacher at the time would be a stretch, but I published a meditation in 2016.
Yeah, so that I actually that I don't even remember, but I think I'm sure I would have come across a few of your meditations, and I would have done your meditations. And that now it was 2018, and so when this mentor of mine told me that his name was Renato Unterberg, and he was like a he came from Europe to India, and he wanted to become a monk, and he has become a monk now. And he told me that you actually can start expressing. So that's when I decided to create my first meditation file, first meditation audio. And I put out two meditation audios. And that's when I had no intention of, or no, like, even no idea that this would work or something would happen. But lo and behold, after 3 months, I get this email from Insight Timer that your meditation has been accepted, and there is this teacher's dashboard that you can check. And I go online and I checked that both meditations had more than 10,000 plays in one day. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. But that also kind of that kind of became an inspiration point that, okay, maybe I'm not ready fully yet, but at least what I'm sharing is valuable to people. And so then it became like a dream, in that sense. Then as I got into this field, then when you listen to other people, when you get inspired by other creators, other meditation teachers, other spiritual figures, you start feeling that there is a certain checklist to this, right? Okay, you publish content, you write a book, you do this, you do that, you go on a show, you go on a podcast, you and they kind of like get your own show, as you said, be on Oprah's couch, or do a show on Gaia, or get a Netflix show or something like that. And that becomes like a checklist. And so I had all those, at that time I had all those goals. But it wasn't until I would say maybe 2021 that I realized that this is not, maybe I don't want to do it as like a goal, that these are the things that I want to do. But what I really want to do is I want to let it unfold through me, whatever I am expressing. Maybe it is okay for me to just keep doing Insight Timer for my whole life, or maybe it is okay for me to like just be a student and not be a teacher. And just because ultimately the truth is, like, the true journey is the inner journey, and the our own growth in uh, spirituality. Yeah, so that's when around 2021 it changed. And it changed because I was, yeah, not really feeling called, or like feeling motivated to write a book. I was very much inspired by you writing your book and Charles writing his book. And I was like, yeah, maybe I need to write a book. But I didn't feel like, every time I would try to do that, there would be a voice saying that you're trying to like push this, and this is not coming from your natural, yeah, no, natural experience. So yeah, that has been my, yeah. So I would say it has been in phases, that at times I would have those dreams, but at times I would just let go of any dream and just go with the flow.
After, I'm just gonna rewind here a second on what you shared, and then we'll continue pick back up. But I just want to highlight, because I know there's newer Insight Timer teachers listening, and I've spoken to this before on the podcast, but I can't. It's people can't understand what it was like in that, even 2018, right? You mentioned this being 2018, like how early on that was, and how much traction your meditations could get because you were being published on the home screen of
Mm.
the app. And in 2016, I mean, your meditations could be on the home screen for multiple days. It's pretty phenomenal when you think of where the app is now. And
Mm.
and I always have this, and everything was perfect, and I know I wouldn't change a thing, and I am so fortunate. We caught the stream, we caught the wave. Like, by no means am I
Yeah.
saying saying anything about that, but there's always this funny part of me that if I can go back in time, and when it's like striking gold, and like not realizing you struck something like really good, and you
Mhm.
have something
Yeah.
good here, and you should probably stop doing everything else in your life and just focus on this channel. Because,
Mhm.
and who knows, if I had done that, because I was similar, right? When I found out, I was like, couple thousand play, like, where, who are these people, like, what is this thing? And if I could go back in time, it's like drop everything and just create content and share on here. But it could have been crap content, right? So everything was perfect. But I'm curious, as you think of and reflect back to, wow, that's a lot, 10,000 plays of your first two tracks. Like, were you like, okay, I'm gonna start creating more, or was it just an affirmation that what I had valuable? Like, it seems from what you just shared that it was, oh, something's valuable, but I need to like I'm gonna be keep doing my own work, and I'm not like gonna really pay attention to this. So I'm just curious, when did you really like turn to pay attention to it
Hmm.
after that initial those initial tracks went out?
I would say almost immediately because at that time I was actually working in a working in a I had my own business, and the business was doing like really well. And the good thing was that I had the option at that time because I had shares of that business, so I had the option to sell those shares, get some money, and do nothing and just focus on this. So I actually, when when this started happening, it might not have been like immediately after like publishing those two meditations, but maybe let's say about publishing 6 7 meditations, that I started noticing, okay, this is not just a fluke, it's happening. Like people are listening, this is something is building up. Although as you remember, there was no pay at that time for like publishing free meditations. Um, and it was after 6 or 7 meditations actually that I decided, okay, and by that time I already kind of had made up my mind that I want to leave this business and I want to like start, something in this field. So what I did was I sold my shares in the business. Now I couldn't have like not, keep doing only Insight Timer because uh, that was not paying. And also like, there was not much scope at that time. As you remember, we could only publish meditations, and even like courses were not available to everyone to publish at that time. And so I sold my shares in the business, but I also joined a meditation like center to work. So I was working as a meditation um, uh, I was working in a meditation center as a marketer in Delhi for 2 years. And that was when I was also started publishing a lot of meditations on Insight Timer. And also, I think that was the time when, after a year or so on Insight Timer, I created my first course. Um I think it was after 1 or 2 years, and it started paying. And when it started paying, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And you can actually like potentially grow this, and you can actually make a career out of this. So yeah, it happened gradually over a period of 2 years that the meditation started gaining more and more traction. I was working in a meditation center at that time, and the good thing about working in that meditation center was that because I have, that meditation center did not require like much of marketing, and I have been working with, with corporates in the field of marketing, and it was much easier for me to work for an NGO in marketing, and because the work was not too heavy, it was not heavy load. And because I had a background in marketing, I had an MBA in marketing, it was easier for me to handle this work. So what I would do in this NGO is, although there was flexibility that if you finish your work, you can do anything you want. So the work that usually it would take like 8 hours to complete, I used to finish that in like 3 hours, and rest 5 hours I had time to create meditations for Insight Timer. So that's how I used to manage my time. And yeah, eventually, when the courses started paying and the income started building, I then decided to do it full time, almost full time. But I was also like doing some, other marketing consultancy work at that time, side by side. Yeah.
And so you decide when full time also means you're going to move to the US, right? Was that I'm assuming the
To
same
Canada.
time?
Yeah.
Yeah, or the can I'm sorry. Yeah, it always feels like the same thing, but
Yeah.
it's like that other place that's above.
Especially now with all the politics.
Right?
Yeah.
Um uh and so 2021 comes around where you shift into, okay, I'm not going to focus on these checklists of things that I think what a person in this field is supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then is that the time Insight Timer also rolls out its new like mentorship platform? And because I know you were really like focused, you're big on like developing the mentorship and doing really well with the workshops, right? So
Yeah.
you were probably like, yeah, tell me more about that time for you. Because it seemed like you were all in on Insight Timer at that time.
Yeah,
And then quick one other question, like do you wish you had because Insight Timer really made it seem if you wanted to. And I always had like a for me, I've always had this. I want to build off of it too. Like I always have had. Like I know I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I don't want to build off of it and have other things. I've always felt that, even from the very beginning, of like I knew Insight Timer was going to start paying and
yeah,
having the courses out there. It seemed like you were like, and there's a part of me that wants to do this too, but the reality is like, who knows what's going to happen? But you were like, I'm all in on Insight Timer.
yeah,
I'm just gonna fully go all in. So, how
yeah.
was that at that time period for you? Um, and do you wish going back, like you would have thought of building off of it as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah. So, the good thing was, as I said, I had sold my shares in this company, so I had savings. And so moving to Canada at that time, when I moved to Canada, this was 2019, just before COVID hit us. um, at that time, I had savings, and I was moving from India to Canada. Now, as you know, like just with dollar conversion, and you know how like there's a vast difference between the spendings in India and the spendings in Canada. So if I would have stayed in India, I would have been able to survive for 10 years without working. That I had those many savings. But if I have moved to Canada now, my kind of bandwidth to survive without income was down to 2 years. So I had 2 years of time. I told myself that, okay, I'm giving myself these 2 years. I will not worry about other platforms right now. I can focus on Insight Timer. And the reason I did that, Lou, was because I was not enjoying other platforms. I tried on YouTube. I tried on a little bit on Instagram at that time. Facebook was a thing at that time. I tried on that. But what I realized was that these platforms require marketing. These platforms require like you spending time in things you maybe don't want to do, right? You kind of being aware of of the analytics and being on top of the game and competing with other almost like competing with other people. But Insight Timer was very different in that sense that there is no like it's more of a collaborative, it's more of a although there is certain level of competition amongst teachers, which I feel is also, at some level, a healthy competition is important, but it's not really like a marketing, oriented platform. It's not that you have to take care too much of your content, of your title, of your image, or of your analytics and everything to push content really, or you don't have to advertise or anything like that. You simply have to like do good work and it will pay off. And so that's what I really liked about Insight Timer. The other thing that I really liked about Insight Timer was that out of 100 people who are coming on Insight Timer, 100 are interested in meditation. Whereas out of 100 people who are coming on, let's say, YouTube, maybe only one person is interested in meditation. So it was a smaller audience on Insight Timer, but again, it was a niche audience. And so, that it becomes much easier to, yeah, you feel good about it, right? It's not like you are speaking into the void. Like what you are saying, what you are speaking, what you are putting out as content, it's being respected by the people because everybody is interested in meditation on that platform. Which was not the case on other platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. And so I decided to go all in on Insight Timer. And I thought, okay, let's see what is the capacity of Insight Timer, how much I can, as a teacher, grow on Insight Timer. And it paid, and to answer your previous question, it actually really paid off well so courses were doing well because courses were paying. But what really increased that was, as you were saying, that the one-on-one sessions and the workshops which Insight Time were introduced, and it was just a period of 1 year. And, that was the beta testing that they were doing. And at that time, almost like it skyrocketed because I was getting a lot of one-on-one sessions. I was getting a lot of enrollments in the workshops. And I was like, wow, like this, I can just do Insight Timer and not not worry about my income and make this a full time thing. And but yeah, what I think you know what happened after 1 year that they shut down everything and the income went back to almost half of what it was. And but still, I would say that that helped that period of one-on-one sessions and workshops helped me to build my own offerings in terms of one-on-one sessions and workshops. It's not the same as Insight Timer because there were a lot of bookings from Insight Timer, but but still it kind of built a rhythm, a momentum, which actually helped me to build things from my own website, one-on-one sessions, workshops, and all these community circles that I'm doing now, which helps to also add to the income support of what Insight Timer is providing. And then it helps me to focus full time on this rather than doing any worrying about going into other platforms, YouTube, Instagram, or yeah, Facebook, or all those platforms.
I can imagine a listener might be thinking, Saqib, you have a marketing background and
Yeah.
you didn't want to do the marketing, you don't want to do the marketing. Is there anything from your marketing background that is as helpful like in this sort of world, or was it just like a different, maybe it's for and I think marketing for different industries can be specifically different. So there can
Yeah.
be like I'm just curious, like how were you able to take any of that into what you do now, or has just the landscape already changed so much in probably the last 10 years where it's like the tools are different?
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good question because you are right that marketing is different in every aspect, and the paradox and the reason actually I did not want to do marketing was because I had seen the marketing world and I had seen how it is, and I was kind of like in a way, although I'm not saying that all companies have kind of try to push content. Some people do like really good marketing without even like pushing content or pushing advertising and all those things onto people. I feel Apple is an example of that. But what I was kind of, I did not want to, it somehow just felt not right to, and that might still be like a barrier in my mind, which I need to work on. But it didn't feel right to push a lot of content out there. I just felt that I want to not worry about letting this content go to people. What I really want to focus on is creating good content. The idea in marketing that product is king. That basically you focus so much on creating something really good that automatically it becomes something that people really want, and something, it becomes a word of mouth. People start spreading with each other. So in a way I was inspired by, let's say for example, Apple, who did not spend on I don't know if they're doing it now, but at that time they did not spend on advertising, but their product was so good that people would like rush towards it versus them trying to push it through advertising. And so my whole intention was I really want to create good meditations, good courses, good offerings, which will speak for themselves. And so yeah, but that's how marketing in a way has helped. But also I was more into marketing strategy. So my work was to actually do research on different markets, and I was working for a smartphone company at that time, and we were launching smartphones in different countries. So my work was to go to that market, do the market research on the ground, and also then come up with a strategy that would lead to a launch strategy for that particular smartphone in that company. And in a way, although I don't like consciously apply marketing tactics to my work, but I would say intuitively, I it gave me a sense of what will work and what will not work, and what is the best way to present something, or what is the right time to launch something, or what is the so it just gave me an intuitive marketing sense in that sense, which is like more unconscious. But consciously I do not bring in marketing, and I think Insight Timer does not require that because you just have to like publish. Yeah, you have to have a sense of when you are publishing, what you are publishing, what the title is, how the image is, and all these things. But you don't really have to go deep into analytics to marketing analytics to figure out, okay, what is, yeah, maybe some people do that, but I don't do that, okay, these are the analytics, this is what is working at this point, people leave the meditation, or at this point, these are the things that people are liking, and these are not the things. I don't go into that too much, but it does give a intuitive sense of what will work and what won't work.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know like how much people are searching, like how much SEO in the search realm like
Yeah.
helps with titling on Insight Timer versus how much people are just scrolling up and they have their personal kind of algorithm in some ways that they're getting. And obviously for us being there for a while, that being supportive, but even word of mouth, I don't know, it's so hard, and it is. I understand like early teachers now coming on like trying to break through, right? There's nowhere your newer meditations go anymore. Like for a long time, even when things changed, new meditations were still somewhere, so you could still
Mm.
like have some organic search function. Now you publish a new meditation, if you don't have any followers, it no one's really seeing it. And so how do you build algorithmic juice and insight timer? I don't They have that information, I don't know. So
Yeah.
I definitely it is harder to get the word of mouth. Like, it's one thing, even if you got 1,000 people that took something, or 100 people that like something, like if a couple of them shared and a couple of them shared, like that can be spread. But if you get one or two, or if you're
Yeah.
having to spread it, it's definitely a different game nowadays for newer teachers, and I recognize that. And which is why so many, using the live feature as a way to connect with people
Yeah.
and really like, create high value content, which you're amazing at, which we actually had. I lied. We did have an I did post, I think, a podcast interview of your episode of Meraki. I think I made it as a podcast episode when you
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
to Meraki, and we talked about Insight Lives because
Yeah.
Saqib has
Yeah.
probably the most Insight Timer Live experiences anyway. So go, if you're interested in just like Insight Timer Lives, go check out that episode. Um,
I think it's
so
now, what you said about the content was and like how they choose. I think it seems to me now that it is more AI based, that the AI will decide. Because I think the last time we were on call with Christopher Plumman when he was meeting the teachers, he was saying that he has introduced a system which is like AI based system, that the AI will decide what meditation should be, shown to what user based on their interest, based on how like good the meditation is. Good in the sense like, how much traction it is getting, or how much people are liking it, or people are rating it, and based on that, like the AI will automatically suggest. But you're right that, you're so right that if there is a new person on the platform, and they're publishing a new meditation, and let's say if they do not have a following there, the question arises that would the AI suggest that meditation because it has no traction right now? Um, yeah, that's kind of a tricky
it's
thing.
interesting if Insight Timer can become more like YouTube. I don't Algorithmically, because I think YouTube, especially now, is really a great place to for a newer person to show up in other people's feeds and to show up in like randomly being suggested. Now, Insight
Yeah.
Timer is having some suggesting feature. There goes to say whether it's obviously different than YouTube, but hopefully they go more towards that to create more of that discoverability, in a way for newer teachers, just as if YouTube's doing it for newer channels. And it all
Mm.
supports, like it all will support. And as Insight Timer grows, hopefully as more users, it's all going to be a win-win, hopefully. And it seems like based on that call with Christopher that things are heading in a good direction, which is really
Mm.
good. But obviously we I know personally 30. I'm curious, was December's revenue even low for me? December's revenue, like this last paycheck, was even lower, like was a bit lower than even the ones before that. From that,
Okay.
did you have the same experience this year?
Slightly
Yeah.
lower because, um, yeah, I feel that I have been doing more work, but the pay has been reducing. So if the same thing was there, like if they were still paying for like the comments, my pay should ideally would have increased in the past few months, but it actually decreased by a small amount. It seems that the return rate is doing good, so that's why there is a return rate bonus that I'm getting. Yeah, how's it for you, the return rate and
You know what? I haven't looked at I this other month just looked at the PayPal notification like of how much I got. I actually hadn't looked at the revenue
Mhm.
breakdown yet. So I have to do some analyzing of rate of return in the past
Yeah.
couple of months just to like understand it more because I'm not analytically like understanding it yet, but it maybe it's good to for me doing content on this stuff, maybe it's interesting to know a bit more. So, but it was lower. It was not a ton lower, but it was about a couple $100 lower than the last month. But I kind of expected that. I was noticing December plays, which makes sense. You have the holidays, less people on it, but I
Yeah.
was definitely noticing a lower amount of my courses getting played than normal.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
we all don't have the hot hits list Charles nowadays of 1500 a day, just absolutely bonkers of numbers that Charles is getting. Um,
Yeah, and that's like for those who understand that, like who's a teacher and insight timer, would know that 1500 plays, on a course in a day is like magic number. Like I think maybe one of the highest of, for all
I
amongst
want to
all
know so
courses.
bad. I want to know what Sarah Blondin's getting a day because that's up there. Um, and so how we talked about a little this before we started hitting record, Saqib. Insight Timer's paying less. You need to maybe your savings has dwindled down over the years, I'm sure, as you've
Mhm.
continued to, live in places that are more expensive and, continue. How do you balance that? Well, I have to make money and this is what people are paying for and this is what I feel like creating, but maybe it's not as lucrative or
Mm.
yeah, are you still thinking of I'm just going to create what I want to create and trust that
Yeah.
the universe will provide or are you saying, well, what is actually going to pay and creating for that?
Hmm. Yeah, that's I think that's the deepest question for today, I would say. Because, it is a dilemma because, on one hand you have to, you want to do what you really want to do. You really want to just, I think if we would have all the money in the world, then we would that's why when we will do what we really want to do, and we will, maybe just I would say I would continue doing only inside timer if that was the case, if I would have all the money. I'm really enjoying like creating courses these days, so I would continue doing that. um, and but there is also like this, on the other hand, this, this kind of this paradox situation that if I do what I really love to do, then maybe it is not as much. That's not exactly what the audience needs, and what then happens is that go the the income goes down because if, let's take an example here. Let's say if I'm creating a course on um, I created a course uh, on love nirvana, and that was like out of like my pure heart. That was not something which I made from an intention of like getting something back, and I really wanted to do that because I wanted to express my heart out. And as expected, it did not do in that sense, like in the sense of numbers, it did not do well. Although I love that course, it did not do well. But when it comes to any manifestation course, like it does so well. And because that's like a hot topic for on Insight Timer. um and so I'm like, I don't just want to keep creating courses on manifestation. I want to like touch other areas and even do something which is like not very popular on Insight Timer. But then that comes a dilemma. So what I've realized is that I have to create a balance between the two. I have to like create content at times which is out of purity of my heart, which I really want to do, which I am passionate about. Maybe talk about, stuff like alchemy or which maybe today's people in today's time are not very much interested in, but but I that is something I really enjoy doing. But when it comes to at times I also allow myself to like mix, like kind of combine it with something that is popular. So here is a like kind of a, as I said, the strategy, the strategic marketing mind, which I did not do intently, but unconsciously it happened, was that I realized that I can combine these two things. So an example of that is the magical manifestation course that I have, which is on the Egyptian secrets of abundance. And I was in a dilemma that, okay, I really like talking about Egypt. I really, love that thing. But if I do only a course on Egypt, which actually I did, it's called Timeless Egypt, and it did not do well in that sense. But then I thought, okay, what if I combine this with manifestation? So how what if we talk about how the Egyptians manifested? How did they, get all that abundance and all that? Lo and behold, it did really well, and so it's, again, a really good, doing really well in terms of numbers. So I feel that balance and that mixing and matching and combination of things can really help, where there is something you really want to talk about, something you really want to do, but you know that maybe if I put it out in its raw form, it will not work out. But if I combine it with something that the audience wants and which is popular, then I can, create something that is unique, that that is something I enjoy, and that will also be loved by the audience. So that is one thing. The other is what you asked about, the idea that should I also, like, in the sense of do only Insight Timer, or or kind of spread out to other platforms, or think about other modes of income. One good thing that has happened, Lou, over the past few years is that although the income from Insight Timer has gone down, but what has happened is that because of the continuous work that we have done, and in terms of publishing meditations courses, and also live sessions, the audience has started connecting. Like there are certain people who have become like regulars, right, in terms of attending workshops, in terms of doing one-on-one sessions, and that has built up really well over the years. So I think one of the effects of doing consistent work on a certain platform is that it creates an audience who are like your loyalists, and who would do every offering that you have, that is beyond Insight Timer, or any workshop that, or any one-on-one sessions, or that you're offering, or anything like that. And that has really helped in maintaining the income aspect of it. So I would say that almost, I would say, and there are also like some certain other apps that I keep publishing on, and they are also paying. So I would say that now, in fact, I would say Insight Timer, although at some point of time Insight Timer was a major contributor to my income, now I would say it's less than half of a contributor to my total income. And other income are coming from like these people who I connect with, who have become loyalists, and also like some other apps that are there. Yeah, but still, I would say in terms of like the share of income, Insight Timer holds the still a majority of that. It's still a like a, not the majority, but a significant chunk of that. Yeah.
Brilliant strategy to think about for people listening. I hope you really take that and think of, okay, because you can I think even for newer teachers, you're able to niche, like what you're able to niche down a little bit. Like the Egyptian is like a niche thing. Like, oh, that's interesting. So that's going to attract that niche audience that's going to be with you of like, oh, wow, no one's talking about this. But for the people that are into manifestation, they're like, oh, this is a different view on manifestation. I haven't heard this view. So it attracts both people. It attracts the niche and attracts the broad, which is absolutely
Mm.
brilliant because it's always the big question, and I think about too for newer teachers on should you go really broad or go really niche? Because you go really broad, you're opening up to more people. You go really niche, you may be actually going to cut through the noise. And so what do you do? And you just said it, just do both, right? What if you put your niche with something that's really broad? And what are the three Darius talks about this of like the three things that people are always going to pay for, like the biggest problems in people's life: relationships, money, um, what's the third? There's like one more that's like a core, always like a core issue. Obviously, health is always going to fitness.
Mm.
Fitness is like a core issue of like
Yeah.
health and whatnot. So those tend to be where, if you can figure out a way to pivot to position, and I would say manifestation in some ways is like a can be all of it, right? You're manifesting,
Yeah.
your relationship, your money, the thing, da, 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 da. So it's
Everything. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it kind of hits on all of it, and you're you're so right around. For me, I just released a course on the prayer of Saint Francis, and I knew I had no doubt that this was not going to be a breakout course. Like I
Mm.
really wanted to do a little course like this, and I
Mhm.
knew the people who like this prayer are going to love this course. So it was for like an insider group, but someone ended up taking the course that didn't know the prayer at all, but he only took it because he heard someone else that he didn't realize would take it. Like he wasn't religious. It didn't call to him, and
Mm.
someone that I've worked with before, or I do work with,
Mm.
and he mentioned this. He's like, Lou, I think it would have been good to title it something like "Growing Compassion," like
Mm.
living the
Mm.
prayer of Saint Francis, like speaking to what it did rather
Yeah.
than just the living the prayer of Saint Francis. And I was like,
Okay.
that's an interesting perspective to like kind of speaking to what you're saying. Like, what are people really looking for? Compassion. Oh, here's this
Mm.
other way to work on compassion or humility or whatever, the essence
Mm.
of that course. So brilliant strategy. I hope people figure out a way to create that or make their own course in that way.
So are you considering retitling your course?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't There's a part of me that just likes the simplicity
Yeah.
of what it is. To be determined. Maybe I'll ask in the mastermind group because there's something I really wanted it to speak to people who know the prayer, which is a big enough audience. I think because it's shared in recovery groups, so there's a big people like in recovery that have a sense of that. And there's maybe a part of me that I don't know. There's a part that's like, oh, this it's just purely that. But yeah, there was a thought, but I haven't thought too much around actually making the change. I'm someone that sometimes it's hard for me. Like when it's published, it's like this is the version that this needed to be. I've
Yeah.
learned whatever I need to learn. I'll take it into account for next time. But it's really hard for me to try to go back and think about republishing something or
Mm.
changing something of that stature of like a title.
Yeah, and I think it's also the like the value of the original intention, right? The value of like originality at that time when you were creating, you were in a certain like passion about this topic. You were feeling passionate about this, and you were like, it was original and raw to you. And there is a value in like maintaining that versus like changing that in the future. I feel the same about like the Love Nirvana course. In fact, someone actually made a comment that this looks to be like more of a title of a porn movie. Love Nirvana. And I was like, yeah, if you look at that way." But actually, and that person said, oh, you can actually change the title and you can do it something else. And like, no, like it came from the purity of my heart, and it Love Nirvana means like totally something else to me, and it's a very deep experience of like awakening. Um, and enlightenment, and through experiencing enlightenment through love. And I don't want to change my originality and like that raw intention around that by changing, almost like a disrespect to what I created, with the intention I created. So yeah, I understand that.
I think you're speaking right now to like the differences in seeing it in an artistry way and seeing it in a economical way
Yeah.
and like and balancing both maybe, right?
Mm.
Balancing like yeah, trying to optimize for the economical, what's going to get the most clicks, what's going to get the title, but also this thing that came out where it's like honestly, and it sounds like for you too. I mean, for me, it's like I knew that it wasn't going to get a lot of people. I didn't really care
Yeah.
about it getting a lot of people. It just felt like
Yeah.
this is the more the art that I wanted to create and wanted to put out into the world, and like
Mm.
it's fulfilling for its own sake, and however it does
Yeah.
is good in itself. And so it's like asking and not making one better than the other. I mean, I think there's a romanticism that the art is better, right? And in some ways it is, but is
Yeah.
also just trying to also honor both ends of like yeah, finding those um serving obviously the business to grow. And I like what you
Yeah.
said, and I say it all the time. It's like having Insight Timer should not be your main stream of income. It's asking a lot of the app to be your main stream of income. So figuring out, for me, it's probably, and I'll do a full recap of my revenue on this podcast shortly now that it is the end of the year and I'm kind of finishing up accounting and whatnot and taxes and all that stuff. So I will do another episode like I did last year on that. And Insight Timer probably for this last year is around probably be around a third. It tends to I've gotten it to around a third, which is great. So if like Insight
Mm.
Timer does a little less, there's other things that are
Yeah.
keeping up the boat.
Mm.
And I'll just say one more thing when in what you're making me think of, and this is something I need to continue to work through because, as I say often on this podcast, like I'm not trying to be the business coach for meditation teachers as much as I kind of am in a similar way with this
Mm.
podcast. So it's just like I'm holding this weird thing because what people want and what sells, the thing that sells the most is obviously making more money. Such an easy
Yeah.
sell. And I find myself super challenged by what the essence that I'm really trying to give in this. Like, but if I do on YouTube, if I do any sort of content that has Insight Timer and money together, that's going to be my best content. Like that's going to be
Yeah.
the most impactful. And so it's like how to give people the thing that they want, but also package it in the way that's unique to me and getting to the heart of how I want to share it, right? So for me, it's
Yeah.
that like that earning, like how you actually earn income doing this work, which is a big thing that I love to talk about because it was such a tough journey for me. And it's also I also have a lot of fears in being that type of the being that guy. I can't explain it, Saqib, so I have some more stuff to work on, but I do want to give more intention to YouTube, and I've been playing with this kind of intention of work with love, earn with integrity. Like that kind
Mm.
of being the basis of what the channel is going to form into, and
Yeah.
obviously going to influence this podcast too. So these are very newer things. So I'm speaking this for the first time to you and for a lot of people listening, and to anyone, if, to be honest. Um, so
Yeah, that's what the and it also reminds me of like is the title of the podcast The Art and Business of Meditation?
yes,
Yeah, so I feel that that's a perfect title because what you're saying in that is that it is, and that's like the kind of combination that we are talking about, that it is business, yes, but it is most importantly it's art, and it's the art that is more valuable. What I feel, Lou, is that when we focus more on the art aspect of it, so I'll talk about if we focus more on the business aspect of it, the impact is in the present. The impact is in a short term. Yes, I will make more money. I will get a lot of audience. But if we focus on the art aspect of it and we do it more from the purity of our heart and bring out that art, it becomes timeless. Like then your work will be even listened to by or read by people 100 years from now. Reminds me of Vincent van Gogh, that his work did not pay for him for his entire life, and only after he died, his painting started selling for like millions of dollars or something. So yeah, that's the value. Although he could not reap the income benefits, but he became like a timeless figure for humanity. So yeah, that's
that
the
that is
paradox.
that is my advice to upcoming and teachers. Think of Vincent van Gogh when you're creating your meditations. You might not be here when they set off. You might not be here when Insight Timer starts. You know, when someone buys Insight Timer, they find your meditation and it's got millions of. You're going to be long gone, but trust that it's going to be there if you're connected to your art and
Yeah,
sharing it. And
you'll become you'll leave your legacy.
leave your legacy. That's so beautiful, and I think a profound thing to share with everyone to remind. And it's so funny, yeah. What I just mentioned, I was like, you're talking about the art and the economy. Well, wait a second, that's what this podcast is about. Like, that's exactly. Forgot what the title of my own podcast is. Saqib, any other thoughts for people listening that might be helpful, whether it's developing, on Insight Timer currently, or ways to think about growing their work or growing the love they have for their work? Any other thing you wanted to chat about or share?
Yeah, I would say that, the initially, and I think it also kind of relates to what we were talking about, that there has to be, whenever we are starting out on any platform, be it any other platform, but also especially inside Timer, because like it does take a lot of patience to build things on inside Timer. On other platforms it can be like a fluke. Let's say on YouTube I create a video, it goes viral, and I become like a almost like an overnight success. That doesn't usually happen on Inside Timer, right? It's like the building of these meditations and these courses over a period of many years, that and we have done that for many years, you and I, and now it is paying off, although there were periods of highs and lows, and maybe we are in the low right now, but still, like, it took time for us to build that and get to this point of, really kind of that it also starts benefiting the teacher. So I would say that we have to kind of decide a period of time in which we will only mostly focus on the art, and maybe focus less on the business, and then later on focus on the business when the thing has built itself. So initially my intention can be, I just want to put out good content, really good meditations, really good courses, really good sessions or live sessions, and all those things that I'm doing, not worrying about too much about the money factor, at least for some time, at least for maybe, let's say, whatever time you have. Maybe you have the capacity to do that for 1 year or maybe 2 years without worrying about income too much. What that will do, not thinking about income too much for those 1 2 years, it will help you create really good content, because when we are not thinking about the outcome, and whatever we create, it is very pure, it is usually very beautiful and unique. And so allowing yourself, ask yourself how much time I can go on Inside Timer without income. And and if you can give yourself that time and just keep consistently creating really good work for that time, then at some point of time it will automatically start paying off, and then maybe you can focus on building the big business and doing other things and increasing your income. But yeah, at least that time is to be pure art. Yeah.
And the irony is that that's also what's going to get you the most income, is
Yeah.
not thinking there's like an energetic thing principle to this, and there's just, yeah, it's amazing. I've been love love that so much. So thanks, Saqib, for sharing your wisdom.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always, it's always fun conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Saqib, I know you got like workshops that coming up or other things. Anywhere you want to point people to?
Yeah, I'm soon starting with anyone who listens before 15th of Feb. So I'm starting with a workshop. Again, this is something which I absolutely love, and this is which is like the mysticism of Carl Jung. I love exploring his mystical side, his mystical teachings, and I've been doing that for a while now. And now I feel like it's time for me to share it. So I'm doing a workshop called The Mysticism of Carl Jung. It's starting on the 15th of February 2025, and yeah, anyone who wants to join that, they can go to my website, saqibrizvi.com, and they will find it there. And yeah, that's my upcoming thing. But my website, saqibrizvi.com, I have everything there, all my offerings, and also my Insight Timer page, insighttimer.com/saqibrizvi.
I'm sure everyone's listening that already following you on Inside Timer. You have a you have a large platform. You've been building it for a while, and yeah, appreciate you, Saqib, and for everyone listening. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.